Don't be skewed. Don't be fooled to think that these polls and what they're showing is accurate. It's as inaccurate as hell. They are skewing these polls from the get-go, fam. So we looked at the Data for Progress, who put this report up on the Rasmussen poll. It's called Biden support among Democrats may be exaggerated, fam. And what they're doing a lot of tactics. The first thing they're doing is a lot of these polls is that 1/3 of the people that they poll in these polls say they're undecided right now. So they throw those numbers out of the way right away. Now, generally, most of these people who do those, when they ask those questions that they're undecided, they don't vote along the mainstream lines. They don't vote along party lines. It's somebody outside the box. So they're leaning to an outsider like a Sanders, like a Gabbard or a Pete Buttigieg, or somebody who's not been around, and they want to see what they have to offer first. But more than likely, a lot of those people that are undecided, they're going to go for Sanders, okay, right now, because they just tell them that they're undecided. Also, the majority of this data that these people use are people north of 39. So they're removing. You showed that one poll where everybody in the age of 30, they're not even using it.
It was over the age of 50, actually.
Yeah.
All those people. Everybody was over the age of 50.
So if you're taking the average of the other polls, they get it to 39. So everybody's above 40 years old. So they're pretty much taking your voice and not applying them to any of these polls that you will see on TV. They're not asking you. They're not talking to you. And they pull out all those tricks, fam. 50 years old in landlines. Who the fudge has a landline nowadays?
I haven't used a landline since I was in elementary school. I kid you not. Maybe middle school.
And the third tactic they use is the people they poll hardcore party insiders.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. People who are loyal to the DNC, the establishment people, that's who's on their list for these polls. Therefore, they could put this information out, skew it going on, whatnot. Go for Data for Progress. There was like I said, did you put it up there, right? It's exaggerated. Just a picture about what's going on. And fam,
also the
update in the Iowa poll.
Just the sample sizes tend to be very small, 300 to 400 people. That's not a
That's
representative
ridiculous.
sample.
300 to 400 people.
We have
You get more of that in your tweets.
Yeah. We have
Your twits.
We have an Iowa poll update though, which is really interesting. The Iowa polls tend to be a little bit more accurate because Iowa's just hardcore relying on that. So the Iowa poll shows Biden's lead against Bernie has shrunk to 0, that they're tied. I don't even think that's accurate. I honestly think Bernie is actually the front runner. But this is what it shows, and this was a little bit more accurate when I looked at the data. But I just wanted to kind of tell you guys a little bit about it.
You got to always check the data when you look at these polls, right, fam?
Yeah, 615 likely Democratic caucus goers, because Iowa has a caucus. So it's a little different than a regular primary. And they conducted it from May 15th to May 19th and found that both Biden and Sanders were earning 24% among the Democratic candidates. This is important, the Democratic candidates, because people who are going to vote for Sanders aren't all going to be Democrats.
Yep.
They're just not. And so the poll's margin of error is plus minus 3.9%, which isn't terrible. Some of the other ones we've seen has been north of 5, which is a lot worse. And then so we have some data here from Joe Biden's rallies that, they're acting like he's getting all these people lined up, et cetera, et cetera.
Dude, there was 46 people out there the other day.
Exactly. So we have 100, 250 to 300, 400,
this is the people at the rallies?
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
250 and 150. Bernie Sanders is drawing thousands. In fact, I saw on one of my friends' posts that they got information from the campaign that they had to get another venue for one of his rallies because they were north of the max capacity. And we actually, these polls aren't even showing Tulsi because they're only sampling Democrats. Tulsi has a lot of independent and Republican and whatever support.
I want to talk about that real quick.
And I think that's not being accounted for. If you guys remember, that happened to Bernie too in 2016. Tulsi is like the Bernie now, not necessarily in policy or everything exactly, but I'm saying she's a new kid on the block. She's
the one that's getting targeted.
That's getting a lot of the hardcore leftists, anti-establishment people really excited, and she's really, really being bold with her stance on anti-war and anti-imperialism because the military-industrial complex is so strong that even Bernie Sanders has trouble ever even saying anything about them too much. He's careful. He says it, but he's a little bit more nuanced, whereas Tulsi is nope, we're not doing this. Nope. Syria, what happened in Syria isn't so black and white. What's happening here isn't black and white. There's just a lot of things, and that's why she's getting a lot of flack. But actually, if you do the research, you'll see that she's right And I also trust her judgment because she is a veteran. She's been out there. She's seen the repercussions of war on her friends, on her comrades, on her colleagues, and on herself. And I think, I trust that as well.
Well, let me just say this much right here with the Joe Biden thing. I added that up all together. That's about 1,250 people total.
Bernie, yes.
At these. That's 1,250 is the half the average of what people who show up 2 hours earlier to a Bernie rally for. Literally. There's people here. Listen, there were over 1,300 people in the California rally 2 hours early. 2 hours before Bernie Sanders got there.
There was 15,000 to 20,000.
People
they never
across
settled.
the street on the road.
In L.A.
Yes.
There was more in San Francisco. I think San Francisco had the highest. And then San Diego had around 8 to 10,000 people. I mean, you're really telling me that that's not going to translate? Let's be real here. Like, that's the reality. I talk to a lot of people, and I have yet to meet someone that says, yeah, Joe Biden, he's awesome. He's my first choice. Especially people under 50. There's just
There's nobody there, unless you got a landline. And I want to talk a little bit more about Biden. But before we get to the end stuff for Tulsi, I have a question, which is a follow-up to this part. But while we're still on rag on Joe Biden time, which is, and I don't even say it's rag on Joe Biden.
Exposing.
Educate people on Joe Biden. Educating people on Joe Biden, because that's what the guy told me in the Real News video. That's what I put up on my post, which I got a lot of feedback on. And you know what? It's working. People are getting educated. There's a reason why he's dropping in the polls. And once again, we can't waste our time. If you remember 2015, when we were battling with Hillary, we were kind of a little bit lackadaisical until it got to halfway through that primary, and then it was the gloves are off. We're a month before the first debate. The gloves have been off, and they're going to continue to stay off. Fam, tell the difference between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders as pertaining to Bernie Sanders in 1963 and Joe in 1975.
Yeah, so a lot of people like to say that Joe Biden and Bernie are similar. They're the same age and the other two white men, and that's pretty much where it ends, because Bernie Sanders in 1963 was arrested protesting segregation. There's that famous picture that a lot of us have had on our profile. And in 1975, Joe Biden was making a passionate speech defending segregation. And this actually came out recently. Like, it kind of got highlighted again. And you can find it, I think, the audio, if you do a little bit of a Google search. But that is actually accurate. He was defending segregation.
Yep.
And nobody likes to bring that up, right? But people like to paint Bernie as a sexist, racist that doesn't care about women's issues. And that's just not the case. So let's go on to the next one.
But let me just say this much, too. If you in the 1975 speech, I saw a little bit of it. If you go to the Real News, Joe Biden, the credit card candidate, it will show some of that speech back in 1975 of him pandering to people. Go ahead, fam. Sorry.
And then Bernie is marching in protest in support of Roe v. Wade to protect Roe v. Wade in 1981. That same year, Biden was voting to allow states to overturn Roe v. Wade. And it's really interesting, the dichotomy here. Biden is pretty much a Republican, in case you haven't seen. And so this is some of what they said in quotes. Bernie said, "It strikes me as incredible that politicians think that they have the right to tell a woman what she can or cannot do with her body." And Biden said, "I don't think that a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body," which doesn't make any sense, Joe. It's my body, my choice. That's all.
It makes sense to Republicans.
Oh,
it makes
but
sense
wait,
to Republicans.
I'm sorry.
Republicans get that blame.
Bernie isn't a Democrat.
No, he's not.
So Joe's a Democrat? Oh, okay. So we should vote for Joe because he's a real Democrat. That is what your real Democrat did historically. And look, by the way, none of the mainstream media has talked about the fact that Bernie went to a march for women's rights in Birmingham against what's happening in Alabama, and he was standing with women and marching with women. Was Joe doing that? No, Joe didn't do any of that. All he's saying is, I support women. I want to make this country regain the soul of this country. But he's not really walking the walk. And you always have to look at that. And I don't even know why we're saying this, because nobody likes Joe Biden.
Yeah.
But I mean, I see some people on Facebook and centrist older people that are like, well, I like Joe. He's polite. If you're really going to base your decisions on whether someone's polite or not, I guess we do deserve 4 more years of Trump because that's just not.
We want a president, not a fucking role model, really, to tell you the truth. Get the fuck out of there with that shit. And you know what? We're going to keep regurgitating this shit because if Joe Biden is around by turkey time, Thanksgiving, then you have all the ammunition you need to speak to your elders, your aunts, your uncles, who just don't get it, who think that Joe Biden is a viable candidate. You got all the information. He shouldn't be around by Thanksgiving. But if you have a dinner, you're going out with your family, whatnot, and people are talking about Joe Biden, drop the knowledge. Drop the facts.
I'm going to drop it.
Joe Biden just surfaced. I sent to Johnny the other day. This son of a bitch was out there bragging that he wrote the crime bill and said he wanted a 40-foot fence for 700 fucking miles.
Johnny,
isn't that the same thing as a wall?
Can we pull it up? We'll give you a minute, but it's on my Twitter.
The fence one?
Yeah, the one with Simone Sanders, who, by the way, in case you guys forgot, that Simone Sanders worked for
Bernie Sanders
in 2016, and I was around then, and a lot of my friends were telling me she's a mole, and she turned out
she was a mole.
The campaign's position that the crime bill did contribute to mass incarceration.
Victor, I think the vice president, his comments speak for themselves. What is very clear is
his comment was that it does not contribute to mass incarceration. The former president who signed it said it did.
Look, Victor, if we play the whole clip, what he also said was that the majority of folks that are incarcerated were incarcerated at the state level.
And there's a reason for that. Let me put up the truth in sentencing incentives here.
And I mean, there is a reason for that.
But there's a reason. Let me put it up. Let me put it up on the screen, guys. The truth in sentencing section of the 1994 crime bill. This is page 21. It incentivized. It offered billions of dollars to build new correctional facilities if states would increase the percentage of convicted violent offenders, increase the average prison time, increase the percentage of the sentence was there. Did this bill not incentivize putting more people in jail and keeping them there longer?
Victor, I am not going to sit here and tell you the crime bill was perfect. There were some really great preventative things that it did. It took on the NRA, and then there was an overcorrection. What you're describing was an overcorrection. There was a reach. Some folks went too far. The bill wasn't perfect.
I like the idea they keep in jail longer. I'm the guy that wrote the bill requiring federal judges to keep people in jail. He's
bragging about
100% of the time for which they're sentenced.
Another thing about how perspectives change over time. Bobby Rush, member of Congress, said the other day, I'm ashamed that I voted for the 94 crime bill. You ashamed of that bill?
Not at all. In fact, I drafted the bill, as you remember.
I know that.
We must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter,
fucking lawmaker here for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth.
That's disgusting because it absolutely does matter. That's someone that doesn't have empathy. That has the privilege to say that is on his high horse, acting like he didn't give his children. And look at his children, his daughter, what the things she was doing. It's a little bit ridiculous coming from someone like that, and it's completely an attack against people of color, which is why it irks me when I see people of color defending him. They have no reason to defend him, none whatsoever. Same with Kamala Harris when it comes to jailing people of color, and it's ridiculous. And one of the things that I think is blatant is you can't deny the fact that he wrote the crime bill and the consequences. She couldn't even answer the question. You could tell.
Tapped
she
on,
just
tapped
couldn't
answer
do
on
it.
Yeah.
She couldn't do it.
I want to say a special thanks out to Rachel Mary Wynn, Jim Lockett, SFX over on the Convo Couch YouTubes. Rachel Mary Wynn, thank you so much. Paul BSO Gaming just said, in my opinion, I think Trump should be impeached ASAP. Every moment he remains in office is a moment our Earth suffers because he denies climate change. Very true. But he also followed up with Biden is horrible. So I guess he's on the thinking
he denies climate change, but then we have Elizabeth Warren trying to make militarism green, which is going to destroy our climate anyway. So yeah, let's bring biodegradable missiles as we bomb the Earth. I think it's a little ridiculous to ignore the fact that Democrats are just as guilty of destroying the planet as Republicans are. And I think if we focus only on Donald Trump, again, we're not really solving the cut. Like we have a wound and it's in the artery and we're just kind of putting little band-aids around it. The person's going to die. We're going to die anyway. So we need to actually address the main issue.
Yeah, and Obama was the fracker in chief. Let's not forget it. And that's Obama. Obama's way better than Biden as far as I'm concerned. But once again, I wouldn't even digress to Obama. It's time to take a stance. We have to change the system. Listen, the Republicans did what they did on the right. It's time for us to do what we have to do on the left. We have to have the tsunami of votes come through, you know what I'm saying, from two candidates in particular, because once one candidate drops out, they can hand their delegates right over to the other person, just like before.
Yeah,
we're
going to continue to talk about that.
Let's rag on Nancy Pelosi first.